Hi there. So we're here to talk about Jim Carrey's top 10 films. I'm going to give this a little bit of a preface. Firstly, I'm only going to be doing films where he was a major part, or at least a large supporting part. I actually think that all top 10 here, he was the major role in the film. Um, so nothing like Peggy Sue Got Married or The Deadpool, where he only had small parts. When I was putting the list together, I got to 9 films fairly easily, but the 10th film was a real struggle as there wasn't anything particularly stand out in my mind that I really enjoyed enough that I would think of a top 10 list, which is a real shame. I went through things like Fun with Dick and Jane, which was actually very close. It's an okay enough comedy. Once Bitten, which I haven't seen in a long time, one of his early ones. Bruce Almighty, which has a few moments in it, but it is a bit gaudy. Kick-Ass 2, which I didn't really like, but I loved him in it. But really, I'm not going about performance, I'm going about the film as a whole. So I ended up with our number 10, The Truman Show. Truman Show has got some really good moments. It's well made, it's well put together. I don't know, it just seems a little bit sappy for my tastes, but it made it in there at number 10. And at number 9, we have Dumb and Dumber. Now, this a few years ago, this would have been much higher on my list, and it would have probably been in the top 3 or 4 at least. But on my last rewatch of it, I found that it did feel a lot cheaper than I always remembered it, and some of the jokes had not aged quite as well. But there are still some real classics in there, um, and it was. In fairness, it probably is neck and neck with numbers 8 and 7, which I'm about to release. So number 8, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, the sequel to Ace Ventura, went for a much sillier bent with a lot less original ideas, a lot of more spoofs on popular movies like Cliffhanger and the such. But it still had some really great laughs. Which brings us to number 7, which is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. This, when I first saw this at the cinema, the whole cinema and myself were just laughing non-stop at this craziness, at this new talent that had really pushed the bar, and it was, it still holds up pretty well. Surprisingly, even just a few years ago, much like Dumb and Dumber, this one would have been probably in the top 3 or 4. But it is on rewatch. It was surprisingly cheap looking, and the jokes weren't quite as good or quite as consistent as back in the day, but it's still a strong amount of laughs there. Now, number 6 is an underrated Jim Carrey film, a great sort of drama slash comedy, um, based on a true story, I believe. It's I Love You, Philip Morris. And he plays a gay man with his lover is Ewan McGregor. And Ewan and him do a great job together. There is a real caper element in there as well. Quite a wonderful film that probably hasn't been seen enough. Which brings us to number 5. Now, number 5 is Me, Myself and Irene. I did not care for this when I saw it in the theatre, which is strange, because when I did finally see it again on television, I really enjoyed it. And a couple of times I've seen it since, I actually think it's lasted the test of time a lot better and a lot more consistent than some of the comedies I used to have ahead of it, like Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber. Um, Me, Myself and Irene has got a lot of laughs. Next up is number 4, which is Yes Man, which is an underrated film, latter day comedy of Jim Carrey's. Not so much the zany comedy of his early years, but a more of a regular type comedy. But great supporting cast. Jim Carrey's great in the lead, and always a joy to watch. And number 3, this is quite a surprise, is Liar Liar. Upon more recent rewatch, this has held up very well. It was always a very strong comedy, and I don't really like family comedies with their sappy stylings, and the kid in it is annoying as shit, but the rest of the film is an absolute classic with consistent laughs. Most all of the jokes hit. Jim Carrey is awesome. We're bringing it to number 2, and here we have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And this is a really interesting film, very different for Jim Carrey, but he does bring some of his Carreyisms to the performance, but it doesn't override the interesting nature of the film. This is top quality filmmaking, storytelling, interesting premise. Definitely worth a look. Now we're finally at number 1, which is head and shoulders above the rest. It is the classic Cable Guy. The Cable Guy is a dark comedy which was misunderstood when it came out. It's got a cult following since, but it is scene after scene of brilliance. Directed by Ben Stiller, Matt Broderick playing the straight man role, which is about all he's really good for these days, and Jim Carrey just tearing up the screen. Judd Apatow was involved in the production of this film also, and this is one I can watch over and over again. I have the excellent Blu-ray of it, which has some other special features, and I recommend it. So there we have it. Cable Guy's number 1. People might be wondering where Man on the Moon was on my list, and while I respect Man on the Moon, and I think Jim Carrey did an amazing job in the film, the true life character he's playing in I found very annoying, and I found the story kind of annoying, and it's not a film I respect what was achieved, telling a real life story and how it was actualized, but not an enjoyable film for me to watch, so it cannot make the list. There we have it.